Hey guys, welcome to the Deansy Boy Show podcast. I am your host, Reece Deans, and today I've got another topic to discuss with you, and it involves the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, through its early progress and throughout the years, the WWE Hall of Fame has always inducted some of the most prolific, legendary figures of professional wrestling, the likes of Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Jimmy Hart. All through the years, they've inducted some of the most fantastic pioneers of professional wrestling, and to go into the WWE Hall of Fame for them is such a tremendous honor and well deserved. Now, a few years back, they just created this little side induction class called the Celebrity Wing. Now, the Celebrity Wing of the WWE Hall of Fame has been criticized for its recent inductions on individuals. They've been criticizing for some of the people who the fans thought don't deserve to be in that position because they haven't done enough for the company of WWE or professional wrestling itself. Now, for some, I like to think that Mr. T, Mike Tyson, William the Refrigerator Perry do deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, only because they've actually participated in either storylines or wrestling matches or just a few moments where they actually done their part. They've been in physical activities and I wouldn't be surprised that in the near future Stephen Amell would be inducted into the Hall of Fame because he was part of a storyline. It fitted right for him, and of course he participated in the tag team match, and he actually fought in the match like what Mr. T done back in the 80s during WrestleMania. But there are some that have been criticized for being part of the Hall of Fame, such as Donald Trump. And the reason why Donald Trump's been one is because though he was in a storyline with Vince McMahon, to be honest with you, because of his presidential election, running as president is going on, I think WWE will be like, oh, okay, let's go and be quiet about that. But there have been other inductees such as Snoop Dogg, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bob Uecker, and Drew Carey. I mean, some of those celebrities who've done absolutely nothing and actually not left a mark or left an historical moment in the WWE or in professional wrestling itself, that it just clearly thinks to yourself, well, what's the point in having a celebrity ring if they're going to just induct random celebrities who've only made an appearance probably like just once? They just made an appearance, said hello on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, and just basically Vince McMahon or someone just said, yeah, induct him because he made a big impact in wrestling. No, he didn't. Like, he or she, whoever done it, just never done that. Unlike, like I said, Mike Tyson, Mr. T, and the Refrigerator Perry, they did, because they actually left a mark. And sorry if I'm getting tongue-tied, but I'm trying to explain that they were the type of individuals that let people throughout the ages start talking about it constantly. At least they get a recognition. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there are other celebrities who have been part of wrestling in many different ways. Like Cyndi Lauper, she was part of the rock and wrestling era, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gets inducted into the Celebrity Wing Hall of Fame. But in most cases, there have been so many people who don't deserve it that it's been insulting fans. But I want to address you guys, you wrestling fans out here, and I want to tell you about one individual that I think does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and yes, this person is going to be a celebrity. One celebrity that I think rightfully deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame is the one who probably started off all this Hollywood versus wrestling industry feud that pioneered to create the rock and wrestling era. That person is comedian Andy Kaufman. For some who don't know Andy Kaufman, or do not know who he is in particular as to what he has done in Hollywood, he was a comedian back in the 70s and 80s, I think it was. And the reason why I say his name is because of the way he gave wrestling such an impact and such recognition. When he started off uh, getting involved wrestling, he was showing off being the heel celebrity. He was being this bad guy person who was part of this comedy routine where he was showing off and claiming to be this intergender champion by challenging other women to a fight. Now, if you look at Andy Kaufman, his physique is not all up to standard like you would see in a proper professional wrestler where they're full of bigger muscles. He's, no offense to Andy Kaufman, but he looked like a skinny wimp. And that was the whole point of his little, like, schemish, little cowardly heel guy. And it was part of his comedy routine as well. He actually came up with the idea himself that, wait a minute, if I started doing this, started being this bad guy who thinks I'm better than these women and some other people, then maybe I can actually do something with wrestling. And it has been said so many times, Andy Kaufman grew up and to the day he died loved and had a passion for professional wrestling and wanted to get involved. So he came up with this idea, and so he actually he actually approached Vince McMahon Sr. to do this little storyline, and of course, through sources and the stories, Vince McMahon Sr. turned it down. And it got to a point that in one of his storylines, at one event, which was at a Memphis territory promotion, he got involved in a feud with Jerry the King Lawler. At one moment, Jerry the King Lawler had to interfere in a match between Andy Kaufman and a wrestler who I think Jerry the King Lawler trains, because Jerry wanted to, in kayfabe wise, wanted to shut Andy Kaufman up. So, because of that, Andy Kaufman decided to go after Jerry the King Lawler, which set off the wrestler versus comedian or actor feud, and it started kicking off the wrestling v Hollywood era. The rivalry gave the small Memphis promotion, the one that Jerry the King Lawler was wrestling at, global attention. And like I said about the rock and wrestling era with Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, with Hulk Hogan in the mixture, and it started off WrestleMania and that, Vince McMahon even used that template to create that particular era. The rivalry as well got bigger attention when both Lawler and Kaufman argued on the late night with the David Letterman. On that David Letterman show where Jerry the King Lawler decided to smack Andy Kaufman, and Andy Kaufman was like, I'm going to sue you, and he had the neck brace on, and after he got power drived by, it sounded a bit wrong, but he was given the power drive by Jerry the King Lawler during the match. And, the rivalry lasted, I don't know how many years or so, but it continued until the death of Andy Kaufman in 1984. The reason I think Andy Kaufman deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame is because he was the first celebrity to begin the long road for celebrities, actors, musicians, opera singers, you name it, any type of celebrity like that, to get into the action of professional wrestling and to have feuds with professional wrestlers, i.e. Mr. T and Hulk Hogan versus Piper and Orndorff, Stephen Amell versus Stardust, Mayweather versus Big Show, all those sorts of types of matches, his rivalry with Lawler became a global success. It was on the covers of newspapers, magazines, and he actually Andy Kaufman took part in wrestling matches and storylines, partnering up with Jimmy Hart, and he was keeping kayfabe alive and strong. I mean, back in the day, okay, today kayfabe may be dead, but there are some moments where actually wrestling is trying to mixture reality so they can try and keep the kayfabe strong. But back in the day, because Kaufman and Lawler started this rivalry, and they were then two individuals were part of their own world. Like Kaufman was part of the Hollywood industry. He was an actor. He was a comedian. He had no experience in any sort of wrestling at all, and yet he was stepping into a world where Jerry the King Lawler was. He was known to be, and that kicked off this big rivalry on and off inside and outside the wrestling ring, like saying, "I'm gonna sue you, Jerry," or all that sort of thing, and it just caused a lot of, it just got a lot of attention, it caused a widespread global attention, and it was inspired that particular era where Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler had this rivalry, and Kaufman taking part in all these wrestling matches and storyline, whatever you, that it became so big that it was part of the biographical film of Andy Kaufman, and the film Man on the Moon, starring Jim Carrey playing the man himself. To me, the film was fantastic. It explored a lot of the wrestling theme and everything. And Andy Kaufman, to me, looking at the story and clips of his involvement in wrestling, should be recognized by the WWE, because if it wasn't for him, WWE wouldn't have the era to have you wouldn't have the rock and wrestling era, and that's a fact right there. I could be wrong, because there could have been so many different ways that the WWE or WWF at the time could have done it a lot better, but in the past it did make wrestling a bit popular, and because WWF was originally on MTV and it was directed at youth, teenagers, and probably through all ages, and it got the youth involved. And because he was a diehard wrestling fan and all that sort of things, he actually dedicated in his work and himself to actually be part of something fantastic. And, it's still talked about to this day. I mean, he was part of a big story, a big, a big starting point for the wrestling v Hollywood kind of era, and it had this finest moment from both individuals. I mean, they're still talking about it. I mean, I can like share links and just to show proof that Jerry the King Lawler still gets asked a lot of questions about his rivalry with Andy Kaufman. But who do I think to induct Andy Kaufman? Jerry himself, Jerry the King Lawler, without a question. In real life, they were the best of friends, and it is for the right reason, and it seems very logical that Jerry the King Lawler should deserve to induct him into the Hall of Fame. Easy, it's simple, it makes sense as well. I mean, it wouldn't feel right if someone completely irrelevant would just come in and say, "Oh yeah, we're inducting Andy Kaufman and this guy's going to do it." Why would he do that? Or why would he or she do that? It was just an amazing moment, and it started off so many big things for the professional wrestling and for Hollywood. It tried to keep so many things alive. It tried to keep kayfabe alive. It tried to keep the popularity of professional wrestling alive. It tried to keep Andy Kaufman's career alive. It tried to keep Jerry the King Lawler's career going. It kept a lot of things going for the right reasons, and for the reasons of being that it was just making it worth watching wrestling. But that's the reason why I think Andy Kaufman does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Because, like I said so many times in this podcast, if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't. If it wasn't for him, the rock and wrestling era wouldn't have happened. The probably celebrities wouldn't take part in many storylines, and it wouldn't be as memorable as it was, or as it is now today. But that's the reason why I think Andy Kaufman does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And that's the topic I've discussed with you today. That's the reason why I wanted to get off my chest. Now, for the next podcast episode, I will be talking about Goldberg. Yeah, Goldberg has returned to the WWE. He's accepted Brock Lesnar's challenge, and I will be discussing that soon. I will be recording a podcast episode discussing about Goldberg's return and seeing if it's going to be the right decision, how much of an impact has it made so far, and where will it go? Where will Brock Lesnar go and Goldberg go after the match. But that's what I'll be talking about in the next podcast episode. Right, that's all I got time for, guys out there listening. And if you think someone does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, who you think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, whether it's a celebrity, a professional wrestler, please leave your idea or leave a suggestion below in the comment section. Please like this video, share it, subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Deansy_boy. Thank you for listening to my podcast, guys. It means a lot. My name is Rhys Deans. I've been your host of the Deansy Boy Show. I'll see you soon.